It's not everybody, but if you're watching this video, it's probably because you came from poverty. And when you come from poverty, it's kind of like this mindset that you've adopted. You learned from your parents, you learned from your friends, you learned from everyone you associate with how to stay there. And the reason for this video is because it's very, very difficult to get out, and I want to tell you my story about how I did it so that maybe it can inspire a few of you to also get out of poverty, because it's not a great place to live when you're living paycheck to paycheck, when you can't pay your bills on time, getting evicted out of apartments, you get into some legal trouble, and any kind of savings account you had just gets completely wiped out. Whether that be like a DWI, a speeding ticket, or just really anything that can put you in the court system. And you don't want to be there because you'll run up credit cards to just for living expenses. And that's not what they're there for. The banks are a business. They're in the business of making you stay there. And they have billion-dollar ad campaigns just to funnel the money directly out of your pocket every single time you get a paycheck. And that's not where I want to see you. I'd really like to see you, with a savings account, and you're not worried about that bill because, you pay it just as soon as it becomes due. You're able to afford groceries. You're able to, when you get out of the poverty mindset, you're going to feel much, much freer than you ever have. Because, when you're living in paycheck to paycheck, and especially when you're in debt, because if you have the credit score to get a credit card, you still haven't adopted the right mindset to own a credit card. So you run up a balance, and then you're paying the minimum monthly payment on that because that's all they told you owed them, and you had it in your head that, well, I don't have to pay anymore because they didn't tell me to. And it's just it's a really awful cycle to get into, is just living paycheck to paycheck, never having enough to stop working. I mean, and then forget it if you get fired or laid off from your job or experience some kind of financial emergency. You're just going to be completely underwater. You're going to use a credit card, you're going to go to payday loans places, and they'll just keep you going. I mean, you'll download apps that you can borrow against your own paycheck, and they're gonna funnel their money out before you ever even get it because you borrowed against it. Like it was, and I mean, I'm not faulting you for doing that, because surviving in America is very expensive for like all your bills, your rent, just average necessities that we didn't think would cost so much have risen in price to astronomical, unbefore seen levels. That's the reality of the game we're playing. Is they changed the rules and didn't tell any of us at the bottom that they were going to do so. And so you just kept on carrying on like it was just going to stay that way, and it just didn't. It ended up falling out from underneath a lot of us. And my story is I was a professional glass artist making bongs and pipes. And I love doing that. It's like with a lot of passion. I carry a lot of passion for that career, because it's just, that's where time stands still for me, is when I'm melting glass, making things with my own hands. And, for whatever reason, God blessed me with that talent to be able to shape it. And I took that talent and I started a business back in 2012, selling pipes and bongs. I even hired my twin brother and my best friend. And, we ran it for years and years, selling little bongs, little pipes, concentrate rigs, just everything we could to keep that business floating. And I ran that business directly into the ground because I had a drinking habit. I would drink beer every day, and I would smoke weed every day. And that's because I guess I was just thinking about the right here and now. I wasn't thinking about my future because I always thought that was secured by the glass I was making, that I somehow would make a good living for the rest of my life doing that. And when I stopped, selling pieces enough to provide for my family, I had to quit the business and let my employees go. And what I did instead was I started taking on temp service jobs, like, construction work, through People Ready, through any kind of temp service I could, so that I could make ends meet. And it was a lot easier than trying to go hustle these smoke shops for money they didn't have. So I did that. I got a job for just a few years doing, temp service, like minimum wage kind of jobs. But the reason I really sort of enjoyed that was because at least the money was a little bit more steady, and I could pay my child support, and I could afford, I was living in my car at the time, so I didn't really have a lot of bills except for like food and paying my child support, my phone bill, all that kind of stuff to keep things sort of rolling. But it wasn't great money. It was minimum wage. The reason I thought that was a good process is because I started asking myself, how can I live a better life? Because you see it all around you. You see such grandeur. These people have houses, people own businesses, you see millionaires, and even on TV you see the billionaires, and they're just human beings. They're not somehow, better than us. They just have more money than us. And so I was looking at all these people, looking up to them, like they had some kind of superhuman power that I didn't. But they didn't, because everyone is human. That's all we are. You might be a little better at like basketball or something, but we still breathe in the same oxygen. We're the same, you and me. And when you're in poverty, you're really on that level. So when I got these jobs, it was really important to me to teach myself how I got there, because I was running a business that was successful, and I didn't think that it would ever not be. Like I said, I thought that, I would always be able to sell these bongs and pipes to the marketplace, but that wasn't to be the case. But when I got these jobs, I started asking myself that question: how is it that others do better than me? And why is it that I'm living in my car while these other people are living in houses? And so I drew my line through the sand and said, I have to do better. I drew that line right through the sand and I said, this is the line I don't cross anymore. I'm not going to be the lot of an impoverished person. I'm going to sit at that table of nice things, and I'm going to have this. And the reason I did that is because I was sick of living in my fucking car. And you have to develop a vehement hatred for the limits that poverty imposes on you, like living in a car, like not being able to pay your bills. That's no way to live. So I drew my line through the sand, but it's not like you can unwire a decade of impoverished thoughts, like when you're collecting food stamps and you're drinking beer every day, smoking weed. I mean, I was making bongs and pipes. I wasn't even trading it for money. I was trading it for weed. And that was just dumb. That was just the lifestyle that I had adopted, that I could just trade this glass for anything I needed. But the U.S. government still wants you to pay them in dollars. So, I didn't pay taxes because I wasn't even making enough to file for them for years. Hustling the streets, just trying to make ends meet, pay my child support. Horrible, horrible existence is what it was. So I have these jobs for, I've had a job now probably the last almost a decade, because going back to work was the first step for me to get my mind right. It was the first step so that I could unadopt this sense of entitlement, or this sense of deserving a good life without working really, really hard for it. And when I did that, I started watching YouTube videos about financial intelligence. And one key aspect really jumped out at me, and that was to pay yourself first. There's loads of other rules about, living out of poverty, but the main one was you got to pay yourself first. You do that before you buy anything, because you worked for it. And it wasn't a lot of money that I could do this with. I said that, okay, it's like having an epiphany, like instead of eating cookies, I'm going to go have an apple and go for a walk, and thinking all of a sudden you're going to be healthy. You're not. It takes a really, really long time to unadopt impoverished lifestyle, collecting food stamps, doing whatever it is you got to do to survive. And it's a really, really long road. It's like a marathon, not a sprint. But you get this head about you that, I'm gonna change, and you slowly start to adopt this. Once you make the decision, now the really, really hard part is starting. That's just the starting line, is once you decide that you're going to do better with your life, and you're sick of living this way, and you're sick of not paying your bills on time, and you're sick of telling everyone, no, I can't afford that. You're including yourself. You're sick and tired of your own shit. You get so fed up with the narrative that you've been telling yourself that, the real hard work starts. So you watch, I watched, hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos, and I listened to so many audiobooks that I couldn't even tell you like how many, but that was important first step for me, because it got me out of the mindset that I can't do anything about my situation. So I did something about it, and that's why I'm telling you about it, because if I can do it, and I was the brokest person I know, like living on food stamps, living in my car, and if I can do it, then you can do it too. The first step is getting a job, getting a basic income, because you're not too proud to do anything. Not when you're in poverty, not when you have children to feed, not when you have child support payments. You are not too proud to go get a job for minimum wage. Minimum wage ain't a lot of money, but it's better than nothing. It's better than trying to hustle. You can't hustle your way out of poverty like that. Not when you have adopted the mindset of an alcoholic. Not when you have adopted the entitlement that you deserve food stamps. You're not just going to hustle your way out of poverty. So it's a gradual step. Step one is you got to get an income. That's the first step. And you're not too proud to do anything. If you have ultra high qualifications because you got a degree, don't even tell them. Don't even tell them at an entry level position. They'll say you're too overqualified. Don't even tell them that you got skills. With me personally, I'm doing construction, and that requires you to do piss testing so that you can work. I didn't even tell them that I was a bong maker for 20 years. I didn't even say anything like that. I told them I was a construction worker. That's how I filled out my resume. That's how I got the position I'm in now. It's because I didn't tell them, the lot of my life. Don't even tell them. You gotta fake it. Go take a shower. Go clean yourself up. Wear your nicest pair of clothes. And when you're in poverty, that's not even a nice pair of clothes. That's like jeans and a t-shirt. You're gonna wear your most presentable clothes, and you're gonna go apply for anything because your life demands that. It demands that you have an income because you need it. And everybody needs one. But then, step 2, you gotta pay yourself. Step 2, when you get that first paycheck, you have to prioritize the fact that you did the work. You have to respect yourself first and foremost. Don't work harder on your job than you do yourself. Make yourself the very first priority. And don't forget that part. That's step 2. Pay yourself. And I'm not saying, pay yourself and starve. What I'm saying is to pay yourself into that account for later you. I mean, this is called emergency money for a reason. The reason you don't spend it on stupid shit is because then you won't have it for an emergency. An emergency could be, they're about to shut your phone off. And so, that's your vital lifeline to the world. You're going to have a phone. So you keep your phone on. The basic plan, at very minimum, the basic plan where you can call, talk, text, and, you can get on the internet and apply for work. But you don't need a brand spanking new phone. Buying an iPhone, that's not an emergency. Having basic communications is. Having a basic ride to get back and forth to work is an emergency. You need that. That is your lifeline to the world. And if you don't have a car, because a lot of people in poverty don't start there. I was fortunate because I lived in my car. And, I didn't have like insurance or registration, none of that, but I did have a job. And when I started getting that income, all those things started to happen. Getting a register, getting your driver's license back, getting all this stuff that you didn't have before. You got yourself into this situation from the choices that you made. I'm not telling you to cut out a latte. Just reduce it. If that latte is costing you your entire paycheck because you have to have coffee in the morning, make it at home. Make the coffee at home. Start a campfire, boil some damn water, and mix the coffee in like it's tea or something. Get really, really creative about how you're going to survive, because that's where you're at. You're in survival mode. And I want to see you get out of there, because I did. And it's been a very, very gradual process. It doesn't happen overnight. This has been since I was 31, now I'm 38. So I've been working on this for 7 years. And finally now I got the courage to do these YouTube videos and tell everybody about it. And the reason for that is because I want to help you. I'll help you to get yourself unfucked. Just unfuck that brain of yours first. Go get a job and start to pay yourself. There's step 2. Pay yourself. But you got to have a job to go pay yourself. And you're not above anything because you're in poverty. Your situation does not allow you to do that. So step 3, you've started to save up a little bit of money, and you put it somewhere aside that's like away from your line of sight, so you don't spend it. And so you got about, say, $300 or $400 saved up somewhere. $300 or $400 isn't a lot of money, but that's going to get you to the first hump, which is where 37% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. But that's not you anymore, because you've decided to pay yourself and make it a priority. You've put whatever you could aside from each paycheck that was not your money to spend, but your money to keep and grow and invest. So you have about $400 saved up, and that puts you above 37% of Americans. And once you get this $400 saved up, your mind changes. You go from completely, this is just survival mode, to now you can afford an emergency. But the next step is you're going to want to save up $1,000. You're going to make that a goal. I own a bank account with $1,000 saved. You can go open up a savings account for $25. And that's all it really takes. If you got, no credit and you can't get a bank account, then you're still going to be putting the money in a safe like I did. Okay, but if you can, it's much, much safer to go ahead and trust that money in a bank where it can earn you a little bit of interest. Not very much, but the point of this money is not to spend. This is the emergency money that you're building up. You're not going to spend that money because then you'll revert back to paycheck, the cycle that you're trying to get yourself out of. And you have to get out of there because it's a desperate situation where you're living day to day. So your next step is going to be to build up $1,000. $1,000, that's not even a lot of money, but it does rewire your brain to get yourself out of poverty. Once you save $1,000, you have reached a milestone that not even 60% of people can do. In America, most of the people are living paycheck to paycheck, the majority. And it doesn't matter the amount of money you make. The important thing is to say, no, I won't spend all my money because I refuse to go back to where I was, living paycheck to paycheck. I can't do that anymore. It's not going to work for me. It's not working for my family. And my heart is bitter because of it. And I hated it there. So you got to get out. You got to do what you got to do to get out of there. Once you've created a financial buffer between you and your emergency, you're going to have to protect it, because the world doesn't stop trying to sell you stuff. They're going to constantly berate you with new things that you need for whatever reason. But your favorite word is going to be no. I'm not doing that. I'm doing better with myself. Once you've created that financial buffer, that's yours. That's your emergency money. And the emergency money that you've built up has taken you a very long time to get there. Because when you have the poverty mindset, every little thing, like when you're in survival mode rather, everything seems like an emergency. But you have to prioritize, and you have to decide what really is an emergency. I'm not saying don't pay your bills. That is one of those things. If they're going to shut off your lights, that's an emergency. You better go ahead and dip into that money so that you can keep your lights on. If you want pizza that evening, but you have ramen in the cabinet, eat the ramen, because having a pizza that night is not an emergency. I hope you understand the difference between what a want and a necessity is. Having your bills paid is a necessity because that's your life. You don't need a brand spanking new car, but you do have to have transportation so you can get back and forth to work. You don't need a brand new phone, but you definitely need, at least at very minimum, in this day and age in America, you at very least need a smartphone. They make them pretty cheap, about $100 now. Service is about the same. You need these things. So differentiate between what you want and what you need. And that's going to be part of your defense to keep you from going back to the paycheck to paycheck mindset, which got you into poverty. And a lot of the things that you do in poverty are just, it would seem silly to the rest of the world, but it's not silly to you and me because we've been there and we know what it's like just to want to feel a little bit better for a little while. So when it was me, I would buy, like a 6-pack of beer every day. 6-pack of beer every single day. Every single day I'd drink a 6-pack because that made me feel better after working. Like I somehow deserved to feel better. And it's been a long time since I've done that now. I don't even drink now for the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years now. I've adopted a new mindset. I've adopted one that requires me to do my very, very best. And you'll know what your very best is. You'll know if you're doing your very best or not. You'll know deep down if the decisions that you're making are right or wrong when you decide that I am no longer going to live impoverished. That's the first milestone. It was a decision. It wasn't having a lot of money. And I would feel bad for someone that wasn't, had the poverty mind, but then all of a sudden they come into a lot of money, because then they're just going to lose it just as quick. They're going to be broke faster because they never ever change their mind about it. You think that more money will fix your situation, but it won't if your mind is broken. You have to fix both at the same time, and it's gradual. It's like, reinventing the wheel inside your head that has gotten you to this position. So you have to adopt the mindset that things are going to be okay no matter what. And that's what you got to do. You're going to have to adopt a different mindset, not just get more money. I always thought the answer was get more money, but that wasn't it, because I was making between 10 and 15,000 a month in my business, and I would spend all of it because I had the paycheck to paycheck mind, and that was just a bigger paycheck, so I could just go do more with it. It wasn't gaining me anything as far as a better life. It was just stuff. That's not living, that's just stuff. Stuff is gone and forgotten quickly. You won't forget that you were in poverty, and when you built up to the first $400, that milestone that you made it to, say you saved $25 every single week. That's going to take you 4 months to build up $400. And 4 months is enough time to be reading about financial intelligence, or it's enough time to completely degenerate and spiral back. You don't want that. I don't want that for you. Nobody wants that for you. So stop. If it took you 4 months to build up $400, then you said, well, good. I got myself $400. That covers an emergency. Then it changes your mind. Your mind right here, you rewire it, and you're going to want to earn that $1,000 now. You're not even going to, it changes the game from that of survival to that of just a game. Now you turn it into a game. It's become your financial game, and you start budgeting differently because you've already decided that I'm no longer going to live this way. I can't live this way and also, have an abundant life. So you adopt a better personality. And that's really what it's about. To get out of poverty is adopting a completely different person than you were before. And it's a long road. It's going to take you a very long time, because for decades you've been living in the same hamster wheel, paycheck to paycheck. So a lot of people call it the rat race. And that's because you're in a hamster wheel, spinning your wheels. You're in debt, then you're paying last month's bills today. And fuck, when you let that sink in, it irritates you that how much interest you pay. You turn it into this game and you start learning as much as you can about money, which they obviously didn't teach us in school. And you know, our parents being good people, they didn't know it either, because they were also living paycheck to paycheck and learned the same way. Can't fault them for that, but what you can do is you can change your mind. You can tell yourself every single day that I deserve a really great life, because you do. And I want that for you. So you gotta go get it. You're gonna have to go get it. And it's going to be a lot of hard work, uphill battles, and you're going to fight and bicker with all the people that want to keep you in poverty. You're going to change your mind, and you think the world is going to change its mind with you, because we got this internal bias. But they're not. They're just going to keep on going the same fucking way that they always have, because they don't know any better. And you tell them better, but they already know everything, so you can't tell them shit. That's kind of what I've noticed about it anyway. If you watch this video all the way to the end, God bless you, thank you. Why don't you comment below how you're going to change your situation? And I'll see you in the next one.